So, everybody, I'm just going to check this out. I'm going to check on my phone really quickly if it's working before I try and go on with my full on stream. I'm just checking to see the quality of the stream. I'm just checking the delay. So, everybody, this is TempleOS, made by the programmer Terry A. Davis, who was a paranoid schizophrenic and created this in what I would say were moments of questionable ideas. He themed this entire operating system based off the idea that it would be the third temple of God. Now, then again, he was highly religious and diagnosed with schizophrenia. But this operating system is quite an impressive piece as being one of the first 64-bit operating systems, on top of the fact that he made his own 2D and 3D libraries that run on the system as well. It's possibly, in my opinion, one of the most impressive things from a solo developer I've ever seen in my life. Now, you have to remember, he built this based off of his childhood or teenage years using the Commodore 64, which were, in his opinion, the golden years of computing, and wanted to go back to the time when the user had direct control over the entire machine, which was a very great idea. For today, I'll be showcasing the multiple different games. This is TempleOS, so there are some newer games like Wordle and Rubik's Cube, Sudoku, and chess. Some games like the Oregon Trail and After Egypt are also have been included. For today, I'll just be covering the games made by Terry Davis himself, and that's about it. So, the first game we'll be trying out is Varoom, a racing game that was made by Terry Davis, which is not that bad. The only issue is that it uses BIOS keystrokes, meaning that you have to repeatedly press up, and your movements are quite hard to manage. Now, to be fair, he did create the 3D library and all of the code himself for this game, which, if none of you have ever coded on a computer before, is quite an impressive feat to do this, especially running your entire operating system and making your own coding language from scratch, and then writing games in it is a hell. Sadly, the sound doesn't work for it, because I'm running it in a virtual machine on my computer, but I do have it running on my main PC, or on a separate partition. The biggest issue with the system is mainly the fact that it lacks any audio drivers, meaning that all the drivers come from the built-in PC speaker commonly used for errors. And because of that, all the audio sounds either one-toned or two-toned and sounds absolutely horrific when trying to place sounds in playing this game. If I could show you how horrible the sounds are for this game while you're playing, you would probably start having a stroke. But beyond that, this game itself was possibly one of his most impressive when it came to his 3D capabilities. I got stuck right there, but when it comes to all of his other ideas, Control M to go back here, there are many different other games he mentioned. The one he was most proud of was called After Egypt, based on Moses, the story of Moses. Now, I have never played this game myself, but if I'm correct, you have all of these separate options. You have the ability to view the map, which, of course, it's all wholly related. You have Make Water Battle Beg for Me, the comics that he made about Moses. You have the option to talk with God, going up Mount Horeb, which is more accurate to be Mount Sinai. And, if I'm correct, if you go up and you reach the right area, you can often find the way to have direct conversation with God apparently in the game, but sadly I have not been able to find that yet. So, when you do this, it generates a random series of words or a Bible verse. that was his most complex game that he made on there, which I'll come back to later. But there are plenty of other things that he created as well, such as Castle Frank, or Castle Frankenstein 2.0, which is more akin to a copy of Doom. You go around shooting enemies, spacebar to shoot, and there's also the tank sprites that he used for zone out. You press space to shoot, and there's no visible projectile, but if your crosshair is on, it kills the purple guys. Your entire purpose here is to kill all the enemies in the level, and as you can see, the levels are quite large for such a small operating system. I mean, this operating system is less than 16 megabytes, so the fact that it's running this is quite impressive, considering that it's a fully 3D environment, although maybe not impressive by modern standards by far. It's still an interesting display of what you can do when you're just by yourself programming and have a passion for what you do. Most of the programs are very simple and rudimentary. As you can see, the list of games goes from flat tops. Excalibur is a personal favorite of mine. But then there's also Cube, Talons, which all of these are classified as unfun games by him. I would disagree with some, but he also has all of these programs down here, which sadly these two won't make any sense to use because of the lack of audio. But it is quite an interesting thing. I mean, these games right here were all added by the user of TempleOS, or the creator, which he created this to be a more improved version to run on more modern hardware. As you can see, there's some included games like Wordle, which I can't even figure this one out, but there's also chess, which is also another decently impressive game for the system, in my opinion, especially when you look at how it plays. You can move pieces just like normal, and I do think this looks probably slightly more impressive than other versions of chess that I've seen. I just took the queen right there. But it lists all your moves in the top left and continues to go down. There's also an ability to change your frame rate in this version of TempleOS. Let's say I want to set my frame rate to 60. See, my frame rate jumped all the way up to 60, and now my mouse movements are much smoother. But if I wanted to, I could go back and change it to 20, and look what happens. It becomes a lot more choppy. Now, this FPS limit can theoretically go on forever, but I wouldn't advise to put it over 60 because some of the games are frame rate based, just like some older shooter games. So my recommendation is keeping it at 30 to 60 if you want a stable experience on most of the programs, especially if you're trying to code yourself, because that can be a hell if you're trying to code anything to do with enemies or movement and it's based on frame rate. Now, the second thing I would like to mention is the tours section, which you can easily access by when you boot up the system pressing Y, or you can go to the home menu and click Take Tour. Now, since this is TempleOS, since this is TempleOS, it has tours of itself, but these are the ones that were written by Terry Davis originally. You have help system, the basics, editing, running, adding macro, choosing file name, choosing directory, auto, search, temple, editor, debugging, WoW, and test suite. I think the TempleOS tours are great because they added some new commands and settings which add a quality of life features towards the system. Now, another